Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trench Coat featuring Arcadian M3 Savage, the Brute Bomber. Now featuring the fiercest fuse list with all of the hottest tracks from yesterday and today, like Fuse or Foe, Fuse Field, Fuses of Fury, Final Fuse Down, and a parched fuse in a fuse tree. The best part is, sure I only said the real ones out loud, but even I don't know if those were in the right order for the fight or not. Honestly, I got so excited seeing this guy's monster form for the first time with this dumb chest face that I was so ready to metaphorically punch him in, and then his actual fucking head pops up over the horizon of his muscles and he immediately became the least interesting enemy of Dawn Trail. Brute Bomber once again only requires clock spots. Honestly, the marker dance this tier feels like we're back in Gen 2 of K-pop with shit like Fantastic Baby, where they're just standing around half the time instead of all the intricate dance moves of groups like aespa, or whatever Twice's Dahyun is doing in this clip. Launch into the fight with Brute Bomber's favorite mechanic, which is specifically targeting and singling out your tanks. This fight is so much more about making sure that your tanks can space out their mitts and that your healers know what a GCD heal is that the mechanics all kind of take a seat on the back burner. That's not to say there isn't plenty of things to fuck up, because oh boy yes there are, but the more tanks and healers you know the skill set of going into this fight, the better off you're going to be. Begin specifically with Brutal Impact, which will slowly gain more hits over the course of the fight, but for the first two instances of it happening, he'll only slam the ground 4 times. Knuckle Sandwich similarly hits more times later in the fight, and similarly only hits for 4 hits right now. I think tanks invuln this or share it or something later, but it's so dependent on what combination of tanks you have in your party that it seems pointless to talk about it generally. Then you finally start to get mechanics that the DPS are allowed to participate in with either Quadra-Boom or Octa-Boom Lariat. Everyone goes to their clock spots outside of the hitbox, and oh, that's as far as the DPS are allowed to have fun, because the supports are the ones who actually solve the mechanic by staying spread out of the clock spots if it's an Octa-Boom Lariat, or stacking up counterclockwise with their DPS buddy if it's Quadra-Boom Lariat. The Octa-Boom Proteans are so thick that even Johnny Sins couldn't resist them, and the Quadra-Boom Proteans are skinnier than his fucking thong. This leads immediately into Quadra-Boom or Octa-Boom Dive, where the boss is going to run his head into one of the walls of the arena and you have to be far away on the opposite side to be ready to spread or stack with a partner once the proximity bomb goes out. This has the potential to change your partner, as the melees with real gap closers should get up close to the boss and the ranged players need to coexist in the back. Either stack in a similar formation to Quadra-Boom Lariat, or spread with the tanks in the hitbox, the melee DPS on the flanks, and the ranged players just not fucking clipping one another as far away as they can be. You'll then get another faint button mechanic followed by some falling towers that I usually fall asleep during, so I have to ask my healer buddy to wake me up when September ends. 6 towers will appear and the priority system is melees northwest, ranges southeast. There's a strat here called KBI, which absolutely no one uses, where you use knockback immunities to ignore the towers launching you, but that's dumb and you should make sure that your arm's length and surecasts are out of reach so that you don't accidentally cast them. Stand in the center tower, whichever of your sides has said tower, since they need 4 people each, and then aim yourself group 1 leaning left and group 2 leaning right to get launched off into Brute Bomber's pinball machine. The corner towers all need 2 people and go off about 2 seconds after the first ones, and then everyone needs to soak this last tower like a sponge while avoiding his acid mist like a hydrophobic washcloth. Sit in the corner for a second, and then the Brute Bomber is going to whip out a tall boy like a depressed, totally of age college sophomore, except instead of some fruity mango-rita or bougie small batch microbrew IPA, he's pulling out a C4. With flavor names like Berry Power Bomb and Frozen Bombsicle, I'm surprised that Square Enix didn't hop onto that sponsorship, because that would have made for a great Final Fantasy billboard. After unparching his throat, Brute Bomber then launches into lariats and dives again, except this time he's got a Cheeto Slimin' Hot chip on his shoulder, which denotes that he's changing up half of the mechanic. For lariats, this means that you'll need to be more or less inside of max melee rather than out of it, and for the dives it means that he'll be knocking you back from the point he's landing at. This is why it's important to join a no KBI party so that you have arm's length and surecast available to you as you pre-position, and then be a heathen like me and still not use it, opting to ride the glorified Gragas ult back to my healer buddy who's probably going to shit themselves the first time around. Now the lariats and dives are integral mechanics for the rest of the fight, and every time they appear going forward you have a chance to get the Lay's Classic or Flamin' Hot Cheetos versions. So once again your options for lariats are in and out, and your options for dives are sploosh kaboom. With Brute Bomber having downed his tall boy, all of the tank and raid-wide mechanics level up so that you'll get hit 6 times as a team, busted 6 times, then thrown right into the adamant links of Chain Deathmatch 1. This muscular JoJo looking ass motherfucker is going to summon his stand, Mr. Fahrenheit, to the field, and its stand ability is to force you to take his attack or die. One of the clones will express its intent to link up with you, and if you aren't bound by the laws of positionals, I find it's easiest to go stand right in front of that boss and then watch the other one because that's the one you actually care about what they're doing. You'll only be privy to which boss you are chained to, which is great for visual clutter, but it does make trying to guide your Penn and Teller teammate really fucking difficult. The chains will then disappear and both of the boss's stands will prepare to charge down their lanes, hitting about 2/3 of the arena. Where this matters to you is that you need to avoid the muscular forearm of the boss you're looking at and get hit by the boss that you were chained to. So long as you stand directly in line with the boss you were chained to, you'll always get hit by him, so you can just focus on not getting hit by the other. Then if you triangulate where both bosses are striking, you can predetermine where the safe spot is when they decide to turn around and strike the opposite sides. But if you want to go full head empty, so long as you stay in the middle like so, one of the two corners next to you is going to be a much lighter shade of tan since it's not getting hit by either of the AoEs on the first pass, which means it'll be hit twice on the second pass. So if you go to the opposite corner like so, then you'll be fine. Decipher the first of the fire or no fire lariats, mitigate another few hits of brutal impact, and then pop into the worst of the 2-minute bursts, starting right on top of the debatably hardest mechanic, Final Fuse Down. And it's not the hardest because it's a hard mechanic. It's all static spots, it's a super easy mechanic. But it's hard because people in learning parties don't know how to stop trying to greet a double-digit parse. It's gonna be gray anyway, just do the fucking mechanic, you fucking donkeys. So everyone's gonna get a fabulous new ponytail that the boss is gonna set on fire along with 8 bombs being spawned. You'll be split into groups of small and long ponytails, and there is no buff on your bar to tell you what you are, so you actually gotta use your eyes. All the DPS will be one thing, and all the supports will be the other. If you are a long ponytail, then you're allowed to continue bursting as you only have to huddle right up in the center of the arena beneath the boss, leaning ever so slightly away from the short fused bombs. If you have a short ponytail, then you're about to explode. Range players have unchanging static spots where the Light Party 1 range player should head northeast and the Light Party 2 range player should head southwest. Then the melee players need to go out to max melee on top of a long fused bomb where Light Party 1 leans northwest and the other leans southeast. Assuming that nobody was standing in the wrong place, you'll all explode and not die, and then you switch out for your long ponytail teammates. The range players now go Light Party 1 northwest and Light Party 2 southeast, and then the melees will stand with the same priority as before on the spots that don't have bombs. The already detonated players group up in middle, and if they get clipped, they'll all die because they all already have bone stacks. As you round the bend on 50% of the boss's health depleted, you'll be forced to get out of the hitbox for Fuse Field. As another convoluted priority mechanic, make sure that you know your cock wise from your cock dumb, and don't succumb to penis envy when you're forced to pick one that's smaller than your teammates. The boss will make his entire hitbox unsafe, and then all the DPS will get one length of timer, and the supports will get a different length of timer. Whoever gets the shorter timers will be responsible for the short fuses, and the long timers get to go to the long fuses. There's two schools of thought when it comes to this mechanic, and in the Party Finder descriptions you'll either see MMRR or RMMR. MMRR is more common, and RMMR theoretically provides more uptime at the cost of adding 5 minutes to your kill time when multiple people don't realize that they had joined an RMMR party. MMRR means that rotating clockwise starting from the north, the Light Party 1 melees take the first fuse matching their debuff length, the Light Party 2 melees take the second matching fuse, then the Light Party 1 ranges, and then the Light Party 2 ranges. For ranges worried about being able to count up to 4, since range 2 is at the last position clockwise, you know that it'll be the first position counterclockwise starting from the northwest. Use whatever method works best for you, and then everyone should stand on top of their fuse, as tight towards the puddle of Pianta Village goop as you can without actually stepping into it. The MMRR denotation isn't just telling you where you're going to stand, it's also telling you when you're going to stand. When you're going to stand and pop the really anxiety-inducing fuses that are threatening to run you down. Each time a player steps on a fuse, the fuse will blow up and damage everybody as well as giving them a 2-second vuln. So if 2 people step on a fuse at the same time like you're doing that group count to 20 exercise, then it'll similarly be resetting your run. You'll detonate in the same order with the short timer melee 1 going first, waiting a few seconds, and then the melee 2 goes so long as your healer's sweat buckets aren't more full than their mana bars. You'll do the full pattern with the shorts and then repeat with the longs, and so long as your game ticks aren't pinging against a VPN in Antarctica, you should get through this pretty unscathed. Tank busters then bust tanks, and it's time to see what the Brute Bomber has been coming up with and what ingredients he uses in his Bombarian special. The boss pops another Tallboy Quadriloco and then starts his Bombarian special combo, which comes in the same 2 flavors as everything else, Quadraboom and Octaboom. He'll then lay into you with 5 massive raid wides, followed by an out mechanic, immediately followed by an in mechanic, and then you'll want to go to your quadrilariat positions regardless of which mechanic you actually have. That's because the final hit of the special is a knockback that'll send you into the death wall unless you're in a corner. And then a few seconds later, the stack spread mechanic will resolve, where if it's Octoboom, only the melee should run towards the boss. If it's Quadroboom, then everyone should run to the boss, because I think this is the one time this tier I can't admonish the melees for wanting uptime. Fuses of Fury is the name of the next cast bar, but don't confuse yourself. It's Chain Deathmatch 2. Upgrade those adamant links to Runite and lock in for one of the most visually cluttered mechanics in the fight. You'll start out with the bombs from Fuse down, but won't have to worry about your ponytails catching fire this time around. Simply pick one of the 2 cardinal long bombs to step on as the enemy stands get summoned to show you who you're going to need to get fisted by. Only this time you'll see that you're going to be getting double teamed by one on the outside and the boss himself. I usually find it's best to still stand directly in line with the clone that you're chained to, just making sure to stay on the long bombs until the short ones detonate, at which point you should swap to the now empty spot in line with the boss that you're chained to. Now, for the most part, Chain Deathmatch 2 doesn't require you to act any differently after this point. Wait for the clones to ignite their arms, then go to the spot that gets you hit by your clone and not hit by the other clone. But sometimes, every so often, you'll do that, and then as you're running to the second safe spot, you'll
I thought I had it all together, but I was led astray the day you walked away. You were the clock that was ticking in my home. Changed my state of mind.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Love so hard to find.
we got him.
So on top of the flame charges that are happening, the boss is starting up the incredibly hard to see green bubble 3/4 arena cleave, which means that 3 times out of 4 you're just going to get hit anyways and it's a non-issue, but there's always that 1 in 4 chance that the mechanic becomes 3 times as complicated. Good rule of thumb here is that if you're looking in the center of the arena and you see ass, then you're wrong. If you end up with the cursed pattern, then you'll need to get past the diagonal of the arena while still avoiding the charge of the guy you don't want to get hit by, and still remembering to get hit by the guy you're supposed to be hit by. Get hit on the first charges, look for the Tanner quadrant and go opposite it for the second charges, and then you'll get either a stack or spread dive mechanic. Get hit 8 times by the raid wide, then 8 times by the tank buster, and if you're still managing to be standing on all 16 feet, then there's only 2 more mechanics left to go. Fuse or foe sounds like tic-tac-toe, which is ironically not the furthest thing from what you do to survive the mechanic. You'll start with 2 circles and a rotator that you want to be on the back side of, and then you'll get some explosive ponytails again, but they honestly don't matter with how the mechanic is solved, so long as you solve it this way. The rotator starts going off as he marks 2 corners with O's, making it your turn to cross through the middle. Follow the rotator to one of the now safe spots created by the circular explosions expanding, and then as the rotator nears the end of its full 360-degree rotation, you just need to end up in your clock spot as you play jump rope with the expanding explosions. The only change here is that the healers in melee swap their clock spots so that melees can be closer to the max melee longer, and the perfect epitome of if you give an inch, they'll take a mile. Man, I have not been kind to melees in this video, and when I finally get around to learning Monk, I'm gonna be fucked. Okay, so Fuse or Foe is done, and lucky you're in your clock spots already because it's time for a Lariat and another 8-hit Brutal Impact. In truth, I don't know if the melees and healers stay swapped for this Lariat or not, but if you pray for Quadroboom, then you all end up in the intercards anyway. Then resolve knockback bomb towers the same way as you did before, except instead of a 3/4 room poison blast at the end, now you're getting one of those Lariat charges from normal that everyone was really worried was going to be a bigger part of the Savage fight. Knock yourself to one of the safe corners, and then after he charges, you've got a 50% chance that he changes sides and a 50% chance that he debates you and strikes the same side twice in a row. The tanks get pounded, and then the boss drinks what I'm assuming by now is more than the FDA recommended number of energy drinks in the span of 11 minutes, so he decides he has to finish us off quick before he starts to feel every individual cell in his bloodstream. Source: after drinking 4 or 5 hour energies in the span of 24 hours, I think I trust the FDA's judgment a little bit more. Special Bombarian Special is the enraged mechanic and plays out just like the Bombarian Special from before, except after the 7th hit donut, the Brute Bomber climbs up onto the ropes and WWEs the shit out of the party as he belly flops and wipes everyone. But if you pick up the metal chair and beat him to the punch, then congrats. You've completed M3S. I'm surprised we got through this whole video without an "oh no, he's hot," because he's like actually factually high temperature. It's the perfect joke, except for the fact that anyone who could fall in love with this fugly ass giant probably has more issues than my unlicensed psychoanalysis can legally unpack. Unlike my usual sentiment, this time I am kink shaming. Go watch a real guide.